Over the years, I've made it a point to ask lots of restaurant employees this question. First, I take a dollar bill out of my pocket, and then I ask, out of every dollar in sales that comes into this restaurant, how much money do you think the owner gets to keep? Do you know what they tell me? Usually it's at least 30 cents, but many times I've heard 40 cents, 50 cents, and even higher. In reality, though, the vast majority of independent restaurants make a net profit after all the expenses are paid of less, and often a lot less, than 10 cents out of every dollar in sales. I'd like to show you how much it actually costs to run a restaurant. Let's start with the single biggest expense in most restaurants, which is labor cost. Labor cost is the gross wages of the entire team of managers and staff. And in most restaurants, this takes up about 30 cents out of every restaurant sales dollar. On top of that, the restaurant must pay federal and state payroll taxes and other employee-related expenses and benefits that adds another 5 to 6 cents to the cost of labor. And then there's the cost of food and beverage products. Now, regardless of whether a restaurant sells alcoholic drinks or not, the total cost of food and beverage is generally around 30% or 30 cents out of every dollar in sales. So you can see that it takes well over half, over 60% of sales in most cases, for a restaurant to pay for food, beverage, and labor cost. Then there are several types of operating expenses, like utilities for electricity, gas, and water, and marketing and advertising costs, and repairs and maintenance expenses for the upkeep on the building and the equipment. Restaurants also use lots of supplies and products in the kitchen, the dining room, and the bar, and even the bathrooms for things like cleaning supplies, paper, decorations and plants, pest control, silverware, pots and pans, and laundry and linen, just to name a few. We call this category direct operating expenses. Then there are general and administrative expenses for legal and accounting, security services, computer, software fees, liability insurance, and also there are transaction fees whenever a customer pays with a credit or debit card. Now we're almost done, but we can't leave out occupancy cost. Occupancy cost includes rent, property taxes, and insurance on the building and contents. Occupancy cost usually runs around 8 to 9% of sales. Then there's depreciation, which is a portion of the cost of the building or constructing the lease space that the restaurant occupies. Depreciation also includes part of the cost of the furniture in the dining room and all the equipment in the kitchen. Finally, many restaurant owners borrowed money to help pay for the startup cost to open the restaurant. So there's often interest expense that needs to be paid to the bank every month. So as you can see, there are a lot of ongoing costs and expenses involved in the operation of a restaurant. And many of these expenses, like rent, salaries, and insurance, must be paid regardless of whether the restaurant is busy, empty, open, or even closed. So the lesson here, and what I'd like you to realize, is that regardless of how busy your restaurant appears to be and how much money is generated in sales, it's very likely, in fact I would say close to a certainty, that the profit that is left after all the expenses are paid is a very, very small portion of the amount of sales that your restaurant took in. That's why it's important that everyone in the restaurant should be diligent and conscious about minimizing waste and spoilage, and why many restaurants just can't afford to do some things, like pay overtime. It's a low-margin business, and making a profit depends on everyone in the restaurant constantly doing their best to make the most out of everything that they use, whether it's food, beverages, supplies, or even things that might seem minor, like paper napkins. It doesn't take many mistakes or much carelessness to reduce a restaurant's profit to zero. So the next time your owner or one of your managers seems to be making a big deal about something like getting the portion sizes exactly right or properly rotating products, I hope you'll see where they're coming from and why. They're just making sure that everyone on your team does what's needed to ensure that your restaurant remains a viable, healthy business so that it can continue to create great dining experiences for your guests and provide good employment opportunities for you and your fellow team members.